Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. I see you guys are looking a little bit sleepy in there this morning. Come on, guys, let's wake up. Come on. Wake up, wake up. I know it's bright and early. Well, don't worry, if you're not awake yet, you've got two great things to get you started today. One, you've got the Wake Up America show. We've got a lot of great news and content and guests coming up for you here in just a few. Reason to be excited. And of course, two, we've got some delicious Founding Flavors coffee in your cup. The best part of waking up is Thomas Paine in your cup. What would Thomas Paine taste like? Well, probably a bit moldy right now, but don't worry. Founding Flavors coffee, absolutely delicious. No mold on our beans, unlike Thomas Paine's corpse. Not a great way to start the show. All right, let's get straight to the news this morning. We've got a great guest for you joining us at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. So 30 minutes from now, Orthodox Jew and conservative lawyer Ron Coleman will be joining us today to cheer on Elon Musk's fight against the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. Ron Coleman wrote a piece in Newsweek saying that the ADL has lost its way. He says that Elon Musk is right to stand up against censorship. We'll talk to Ron Coleman this morning at 7:30 about the legal battle brewing between Elon Musk. He's threatening to sue the Anti-Defamation League for defamation. He claims that the nonprofit organization's statements about hate speech on the social media platform have torpedoed X's advertising revenue. Well, something that affects a lot of us, for those of us who are big on Twitter. And some of you might have seen that I recently was monetized over on X on Twitter, and Steffi and I have been trying to figure out how to game that algorithm so we can get those dollar bills, y'all. You know what we saying? Don't forget, if you're a regular on the Wake Up America show, to click that like button. If you're a noob, make sure that you subscribe if you enjoy the content that you're watching this morning so that you can get updates when we go live. The Wake Up America show is live every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Glad to have you here today. Blutreich, Studio 314, Quest Fanning, Kermode Bear, Robbie Thurman, Matt Unruh, and all the gang over as well as Corey and Callie over at rumble.com. This morning, we appreciate all of our friends at rumble.com who stepped up when YouTube demonetized us last week, just right before our one-year anniversary. We had a great one-year anniversary show yesterday, although there were some technical issues with the audio. So hopefully the audio is a little bit better today. We got the new soundboard, so everything, we got our sound effects back, and hopefully the audio on the microphone sounds great. Just, of course, let me know how things sound and look, because I am the producer and the performer, so I have to do absolutely everything. Okay, so at the top of the show this morning, we're going to talk about Bill Maher is taking a page out of the Vivek Ramaswamy playbook. What? And he has compared the woke left to the KKK. Yeah, remember when Vivek Ramaswamy got in a lot of hot water for comparing that Democratic representative, the member of the squad, Ayanna Pressley, to the KKK, saying that she's the face of the modern KKK? Well, we've got video clips. I've got Bill Maher who's saying the same thing. Honestly, it makes me feel as if we are actually taking ground against the woke left. I mean, it's definitely reasons to be glad. And when Bill Maher said this, he said it on the Joe Rogan podcast. Millions of people were tuning in. And I like to hear, even though we know Bill Maher is a liberal, so he's not like one of us. He's not a conservative, which, again, I'm not a conservative, if you will. I'm a libertarian. But he's sounding more like one of us. And a lot of people are blaming, especially the woke left, are blaming it on age. But it reminds me of that old Winston Churchill quote: if you're young and not a liberal, you have no heart. If you're if you grow older and you're not a conservative, you have no brain. And if you're not, at some point, you don't become a libertarian. Ultimately, then you have no heart and no brain. Am I right? Just kidding. Well, it's true. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. We'll talk about that. We'll play that clip of Bill Maher on the Joe Rogan show in just a few minutes before we get to Ron Coleman, who'll be joining us at 7:30. At 8 a.m. this morning, Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to join us for his regular Wednesday spot. For those of you who don't know, Judge Napolitano joins the Wake Up America show every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central Time to give his legal take on the news of the day. So we've got two lawyers on the show, and the judge is specifically going to focus not just on the Elon Musk ADL defamation case, but he's also going to focus on around the legal question of defamation, which I really want to get into. I'm going to sort of focus on the ADL with Ron Coleman, get into his past as I think he was an intern for the ADL, a legal intern for the ADL. He's going to explain to us a little bit about his history and association with the ADL and why he's supporting Elon Musk. And then at 8 a.m. this morning, Judge Napolitano is going to come on and just talk a little bit about the legal history of defamation cases. And of course, since he's a libertarian lawyer, you can expect that his opinions when it comes to defamation will be very libertarian. So you don't want to miss that interview when Judge Napolitano joins us at 8 a.m. It's going to be a terrific show today with those two awesome guests. But wait, there's more at 8:30 a.m. Central today. We're going to speak to Austin Hine of the National Association for Gun Rights. He's their political director, about this story that you may have seen yesterday, just starting to go viral, about a gun safe company called Liberty Gun Safes, which is kind of an ironic name with this story. Apparently, law enforcement had served a warrant in order to demand that Liberty Gun Safe use their technology that they use to make their safes to crack open a gun safe with for law enforcement to be able to conduct an investigation. I don't know about that, Chief. Here's the rub. Gun owners are upset about this because when you buy a gun safe, you expect it to be safe and for no one to be able to get into it for any reason. But I didn't even know that the technology existed for gun companies to be able to open up their own safes. Somebody, if you buy a safe from someone, that they can actually open up your safe for your gun cases. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me, to buy a gun safe from a company like that. Anyways, we're going to talk to Austin Hine of the National Association of Gun Rights about this, as well as this other story that you might have seen. Did you see this video of a migrant, and I believe it was in the UK, climbing in the window with a knife in order to get at his like ex lover, and then the brother of the woman who was in the flat is just like telling the guy to leave, and the guy's climbing up a ladder, and he starts stabbing the dude in the neck. It's the worst ever use of the high ground ever since, I don't know, Darth Maul in Star Wars. I don't know. We're going to talk about that today. I'll play that clip. We're going to talk about the Second Amendment. And then, did you see that quote unquote cringe video that Stephanie and I played last night with what they did with last night with the AK-47? Anyways, we're getting called out online for being cringed, for being cringe, and we'll talk about that this morning. We'll have a lot of fun this morning. We're not gonna keep it too dark. We've got a lot of interesting and fun topics. Again, make sure that you're clicking like on that stream to help us to get out there, get the message out there of economic freedom and personal liberty. And don't forget, you can text the show too at 573-319-1586. Again, you can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Which let's see. Kermode Bear joining us here this morning. Robbie here. There's as well. David Leo 180 over in Rumble says, gun safe companies keep combos on record. Okay. Well, is that really a good idea? And I don't know. I mean, but if you want to be able to get into your safe later, if you lose your combination, maybe, but doesn't sound like the best idea to me. I would think that when you have a safe, that there should really only be one person who has the combination in order for it to be quote unquote safe. So, not sure about that, Chief. Quest Fanning says, did you hear the UK government is trying to make Apple run security updates by them and not allow patches that would stop hacks MI5 uses? Doesn't surprise me at all, Quest. And the reason why that doesn't surprise me is because Apple's security, of course, has always been about very resistant to government intrusion. I think that the American intelligence agencies as well have tried to demand that Apple turn over, create for them a back door so that they can crack Apple phones. And Apple, at least to this point, has refused to do so. So we appreciate you mentioning that. I appreciate that very much. Grover Bentley asks, can't you reprogram those safes to different combos? Sure, but if it's an electronic safe, then if there's some kind of electronic there, then at least you'd think that it's hackable to some point. I mean, probably what happens is that Liberty Safe keeps some kind of a backdoor for themselves to be able to do things like this. So really a big question there, but a manufacturer override is what David Lee is talking about, and definitely something that is deeply concerning. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the news. Bill Maher is taking a page out of the Vivek Ramaswamy playbook these days. Take a listen to this interview that he did on the Joe Rogan Experience talking about the woke left.
Read about because you don't toe the line.
They should be. Exactly.
You're like a 90s liberal. You're like liberals back when they were more reasonable before they became leftists. And now every liberal kind of has to be a leftist. It's not if you want to be on the team, you got to subscribe to the most fringe ideas that the team is promoting. And I get in
not just the most fringe ideas that the left is promoting, but they change the rules on a daily basis. Today we believe this, but tomorrow the rules could have completely changed and we have to believe something entirely different. That's why if you have a principled belief system, you can't be woke, because to be a woke is to be a postmodernist who believes there is no objective truth. So everything is subjective. So everything is just made up on the spot.
trouble with that too. It's such a I mean, there's so many, like Joe List has talked about that recently, the comic Joe List, very funny guy. And he was talking about I'm a 90s liberal. He goes, what? I didn't change. It's like everybody else kind of changed. It got real weird, like what you're allowed to disagree with and not to disagree with. And, it's strange.
I'm always trying to make the case that liberal is a different animal than woke.
Yeah.
Because it is. And you can be woke with all the nonsense that now implies, but don't say that somehow it's an extension of liberalism.
Right.
Because it's most often actually an undoing of liberalism.
So
you can have your points of view and your positions on these things, but don't try to piggyback on what I've always believed. I have always believed, as liberals do, for example, in a colorblind society, that the goal is to not see race at all anywhere for any reason.
Yes.
That's what liberals always believed all the way through. Obama, going back, Kennedy, everybody, Martin Luther King. That's not what the woke believe. They believe race is first and foremost the thing you should always see everywhere, which I find interesting because that used to be the position of the Ku Klux Klan, that we see race first and foremost everywhere.
Yeah.
So, again, you can have that position, but don't say that's a liberal position. You're doing something very different.
Brilliant there, analysis by Bill Maher talking about the woke left and comparing it to the race essentialism of the KKK. I've actually got a new piece coming out today, an op-ed that I wrote in Human Events. That's the magazine owned by Jack Posobiec and Charlie Kirk, where it's an op-ed explaining why Nazis prefer Joe Biden is the title of the piece. And it talks about that situation in Florida where the National Socialist groups got together and staged a rally at an overpass, as well as going outside of Disney and protesting. Why that one Nazi, I believe his name is Charlie Polhouse, former U.S. Marine, why they preferred Joe Biden to Donald Trump. And I discussed not just the question of the Azov battalion of Ukraine, but also just like the left-right spectrum and this idea of race essentialism. Some of you might have seen that comedy video that came out a couple of years ago where it was one was a white supremacist or a racist and the other one was a woke guy. And they were both talking about how much they agreed pretty much on everything. Well, because if identity politics is your thing and if race essentialism is your thing, then you'll find that there's a lot of overlap between white supremacists, National Socialists, and the woke left because of this idea of racial essentialism. That's why Bill Maher is comparing the woke left to the KKK, because again, they're both race essentialists in that. But I wonder what your thoughts on this are. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, that's 573-319-1586. Don't forget to make sure that you click like on the stream that you're watching this morning to help us get out in more people's feeds, spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Let me take a look here. I've got another clip here from Vivek Ramaswamy where he's kind of doubled down on this. Remember when he was I showed you a few clips last week of Vivek where he went on a couple of talk shows like the Andrew Cuomo show, Chris Cuomo showed, where he was defending his comments. So I won't re-show you those, but I will refresh your memory with this clip of Vivek Ramaswamy where he essentially says a similar thing that Bill Maher was saying, which is interesting because here you have a Republican presidential candidate and Bill Maher essentially agreeing and essentially taking the same talking points, which really goes to show, I think, that there is a fundamental realignment happening in American politics today. Take a listen to what Vivek says, and then I've got a video of him going on Al Sharpton's show and responding to those same things that you haven't seen yet. So take a look and a listen.
Ayanna Pressley, she's in the Congress today. She's a member of the squad. Her words, not mine. We don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. These are the words of the modern grand wizards of the modern KKK.
What's your reaction to that, Bakari?
Ramaswamy's kind of idiotic when he says that.
What's your reaction to that? Ramaswamy's kind of idiotic. When the argument is lost, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. But let's just let the leftists on the CNN panel be idiots for just a moment and hear what they have to say.
His campaign has caught fire amongst some fringes on the right because he uses these kind of slogans. He uses these tag words. But again, he has no depth. I mean, Ayanna Pressley doesn't need me to explain what she was saying.
Well, you need to explain what you're saying. See, all he did was slander and then say, and then defame the people who like what Vivek is saying, and then say, I don't need to explain this. This is the modern left, right? Slander becomes the tool of the loser. This is why I think we are winning in regards to the cultural battle against the woke. We're pushing back and we're winning. When you see Republican presidential candidates and liberals like Bill Maher coming from the same place, making the same talking points, then I think that we're starting to see something special that's happening in American politics. But let's hear what Vivek Ramaswamy had to say when he was confronted by the same questions, the same issues from Reverend Al Sharpton.
I want to start with comments you made repeatedly now, referring to Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and author Ibram Kendi as, quote, grand wizards of the modern KKK. Now, I understand you differ with both of them politically and probably with me. But as a graduate of Harvard and Yale universities, I believe you must be aware the Ku Klux Klan is not a political party. It's a terrorist organization. Historians view the Klan as the driving force behind lynchings of blacks in the American South, more than 4,000 people murdered from 1877 to 1950. And the group is linked to numerous other acts of racial violence continuing through the civil rights.
Okay, so that was thanks for the setup there, Al Sharpton. For those of you who aren't familiar with the history of the KKK, I highly recommend that you take a look at the organization's past, specifically the foundational origins of the KKK and how they started as a social club until they became what they became, the terrorist organization of the 1920s. I would like for you to watch at least a documentary or two on them because they do have some good ones on YouTube. There were actually two iterations of the KKK, and the first iteration of it actually died out and was later revived as a completely different style of organization. Yes, both of them were racist organizations, but the conduct of the different organizations throughout the years from the late 1800s until the 1920s was wildly different. And for those of you who don't have time for a full-blown history lesson, I highly recommend there's a two-part documentary on YouTube that you could watch, or we need to get it on Rumble because I'm tired of promoting YouTube because they demonetized us. Boo. Boo, YouTube. We are Rumblers now. But I'll try and find that documentary if I can and share the link with you so that you can see, because it's important to understand the history of these organizations before we just start flinging these terms around. But does Vivek Ramaswamy understand what he's saying?
Let's movement to the present day. You're running to be the leader of the free world. Mm-hmm. So your choice of words matter. Have you taken any time to reflect upon the possibility that comparing your political rivals to murderous terrorists
they will call you? They can call you Nazis all day long. They can call you racist terms all day long. They can do whatever they want to you. but you're not allowed to defend yourself against them. You're not allowed to take their own tactics that they use against you and use them against them. They call for civility whenever they are weak, and they call for your destruction whenever they're strong.
Put their lives in danger at a time when hate crimes are on the rise? Or do you just don't care?
So Reverend Sharpton, I don't look at the world through political parties. Frankly, it's good to see it's been 20 years since we last spoke. And part of the reason that I came to that event 20 years ago with you is that you were a political outsider just like I am in my own party. But let me talk about the issue you're actually asking about, which is that, you know, what's toxic about that old worldview of organizations like the KKK, which have been a god-awful stain on our national history, is that they say that your skin color determines what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to think. To say you have to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told because you're black or brown skinned. Well, you know what Ayanna Pressley said much more recently is that we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. And so, yes, I do think there are echoes of a historical ugly racism in this country now showing up.
No apologies, doubles down, makes an intellectual argument in support of what he's saying. Compared that to what that idiot on CNN just said a few minutes ago, where he just defamed Vivek Ramaswamy and then didn't actually offer any intellectual support for why he disagreed with Vivek, to how Vivek is handling this question right now. This is why it's so exciting to watch Vivek in the Republican presidential race. And again, I'm not supporting any presidential candidate at this point right now. I'm just calling balls and strikes as I see him. And at the moment, Vivek Ramaswamy is a home run hitter, and he's running bases. He's RBIs. It's great to see. And I know that a lot of people are jealous of the Vivek Ramaswamy campaign. I'm seeing a lot of hit pieces coming out. I read one today on Newsweek.com talking about his prescription drug companies that he owns and accusing him of massive failures. Well, his failures all day long look better than any of my wins and a lot of these people's wins and the haters' wins. So, you know, it's the man in the arena, as Teddy Roosevelt once said. But let's continue to hear what Vivek Ramaswamy has to say, because it's a brilliant tactical rebuttal to what Al Sharpton has pegged him with.
In new clothing.
To say we
and
don't
what I want to lead us to as the next president
just a second.
is a
To say
united
that we
nation
do not want
where we
black
don't actually
voices,
judge each other on the color of our
to
skin.
say that is not going with sheets and burning crosses and lynching people. If she said something you disagree with,
the point I'm making,
you cannot equate Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan with somebody saying something that you think is a little controversial or a little too far.
Right, but here's the thing. How many times has the left compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler? Right? So you can't compare Ayanna Pressley's views to the KKK, a terrorist organization, but we can compare Donald Trump to Hitler all day long. You see what I'm saying here? Right? You see what I'm pointing out?
Some of our relatives were terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. I'm trying to get you to understand
I know
the pain
you're intellectually honest. I know you're an intellectually honest guy, and so I will remind you that Hakeem Jeffries drew analogies between Donald Trump and the Ku Klux Klan, and I don't think you had him on pressing him in the same way. So we're drawing analogies here to make a point.
He did not call Donald Trump the Grand Dragon of the KKK. He did not call Donald Trump an officer of the modern KKK. Let's not change what was said.
So, Reverend Sharpton, though, I'm calling out a double standard and saying that certain people can use certain analogies to make a point. Well, I'm using an analogy to make a point.
Right there. That is an analogy to make a point. That was Vivek Ramaswamy. Damn, that's good stuff. Isn't that a great way to start your day? What could be better? Well, maybe the Wake Up America show itself, or a delicious cup of Founding Flavors coffee, or maybe even an awesome guest. Coming up next, Ron Coleman to talk about Elon Musk taking the fight to the ADL, suing the Defamation League for Anti-Defamation League for defamation. Ron Coleman joins us next on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina Crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're glad to have you here on the Wake Up America Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to click like. If you're a regular on the show, I know you already like the content, but if you're here for the very first time today, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel. The Wake Up America Show is live streaming every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. So don't forget, if you're on the East Coast, a little bit later, and some of you even get up way early on the West Coast and join us 2 hours earlier, and we're grateful for you for that. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and join us every Monday through Friday. We'll be very grateful for you for that. All right, the big story today, Elon Musk is threatening to sue the Anti-Defamation League for defamation. He claims that the nonprofit organization's statements about rising hate speech on the social media platform have torpedoed X's advertising revenue. It's become a big deal. It's been trending on Twitter for the last couple of days. So let's get an expert on the opinion, someone who has a little bit of experience with the organization themselves. Let's speak to an Orthodox Jew and conservative lawyer, Ron Coleman, who's joining us live right now. Good morning, Ron. Thank you for joining us so early today.
My pleasure, Austin. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. Ron, for our listeners, would you mind giving us a little bit about your background with the ADL? You have some personal experience with them, don't you?
Yes, actually. I was an ADL intern when I was in law school at Northwestern. And although I didn't put this in the article, I actually married an assistant counsel for the ADL, Jane Coleman, the writer who is at Legal Insurrection now. So we actually have very nice little greetings from Abe Foxman on the occasion of our engagement and our wedding. And it was a place that was, not necessarily consistent with my most conservative views at the time or with Orthodox Jewish worldview, but nonetheless, it was understood to be an important civil rights group that did important things protecting Jews from certain aspects of anti-Semitism.
Understood, Ron. So you know a little bit about how the organization works. You said in the article that you wrote for Newsweek that there has always been a bit of a liberal slant, but it seems as if it's no longer a slant. It's more of a 90-degree angle now towards the left, which a lot of people have complained about, but they seem to just be labeling absolutely everything anti-Semitic, even if it has nothing to do with Judaism. I saw, for example, that they're attacking, I believe it's Chaya Raichik, who is the head of Libs of TikTok, for no reason whatsoever compared to Judaism. How have they gone off the rails?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to understand that they're not necessarily calling Chaya Raichik an anti-Semite. That would be preposterous. She's also Orthodox, as you know. But rather that they consider their mission to have expanded beyond anti-Semitism to anti-racism. And that's anti-racism with sort of a TM at it, because most people are against racism, but anti-racism is a thing, kind of like Antifa. Everyone's against fascism, but not everyone is Antifa or Antifa. So anything that is basically the values of the Anti-Defamation League are those of the Democratic Party in its current far left incarnation. And it has become a de facto attack dog for the Democrats when Trump was in office. And even after he left office, they regularly attacked him, who is viewed by most people who are seriously involved in Jewish life easily the most philo-Semitic president ever. For the Anti-Defamation League, that wasn't good enough. He was Donald Trump. He was the opposition, and that's what the ADL has become.
Can you lay out for us the details about Elon Musk's gripes with the ADL? Why specifically is he threatening to sue them?
Well, from what I understand, his threat actually comes down to something sounding a little bit more in the nature of what we call tortious interference with contract or with prospective economic advantage than defamation. Although if you were to file this lawsuit, and again, I'm not representing Elon Musk, and I'm not privy to exactly what his lawyers may or may not have told him, but you would plead both. And from what I understand, ADL has been very, very aggressive in leaning on advertisers essentially since the time Elon Musk took over Twitter, discouraging them from advertising on Twitter in order to put economic pressure on him, because he departed in many meaningful ways from the heavy-handed censorship that existed under Jack Dorsey. And ironically, the amount of anti-Semitism on Twitter there is anti-Semitism on Twitter. I encounter it frequently. It doesn't prevent me from getting to sleep any earlier or later than I otherwise would go to sleep. Doesn't cramp my style. But I can't perceive any difference whatsoever in anti-Semitism under Musk as compared to under Jack Dorsey. And believe me, I would know.
That's interesting. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Glad to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. Don't forget to click like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content that we're listening to right now. I'm speaking to Ron Coleman. He is an Orthodox Jew and a conservative lawyer about his piece in Newsweek magazine that is titled "The ADL Has Lost Its Way. Elon Musk is Right to Stand Up to Its Censorship." Now, Ron, we've seen organizations like the ADL and the ACLU and CARE and others just take an absolute leap off a cliff when it comes to what their original foundational stances were on issues like free speech. It used to be that the ACLU, for example, would defend the free speech of the Ku Klux Klan to go out and march. But now the ADL is out attacking people ostensibly for opposing the genital mutilation of children in regards to transgender youth. How has it gotten into that kind of politics? Is it just that it's not like there's not enough anti-Semitism to fight out there. Why has it taken such a turn into these, not just identity politics, but I mean, we're talking about leftist gender politics here, which has nothing to do with defending Jewish values.
Jewish values or Jewish people? Far from it. I mean, I suppose you could argue for some kind of nexus on the issue of gender, this sort of gender surgery that you're referring to, gender affirming care, and threats to circumcision. But I don't really think that's where the ADL is coming from here. I think the real answer here is that the ADL is, as I said, it is a cadre. It's an organization of the National Democratic Party. The Internal Revenue Service no longer pays any attention whatsoever to 501c3 organizations, on the left at least, acting in a frankly partisan manner, and that's the case with virtually every one of them. They're overtly political. Right now, to be a Democrat and to be a liberal, you have to sign on to gender ideology and gender affirming care to the extent, as my wife has written in Legal Insurrection, actually, that you have states like New Jersey suing local school boards. Remember a few months ago or a year ago, we were saying, well, if they're going to control the national politics, if there's a uniparty, still we can affect things by getting local. What Democrats are doing now is having the center, whether it's nationally or at the state level, screw down on local pushback. All that is part of what the Democrats are doing, and the ADL is for whatever Democrats are doing. It's run by a person who is out of the Obama White House. He had no background in anti-defamation activism and Jewish activism. That's what the ADL is about now, and these organizations have been captured by the Democratic Party in toto. They always had a friendly relationship with it, but whatever the Democrats are pushing, whatever their I don't know if it's really the base, but whatever their activist base and to some extent their donor base want, that's what their proxy organizations are going to do.
Ron, the ADL is specifically cracking down on what Elon Musk calls free speech. It's become a common tactic of the left now to not just try and target conservatives and libertarians like ourselves at our places of business and our work and our specific jobs, but for people like myself and yourself who have podcasts, and I'd love for you to plug your podcast here in just a minute. For those of us who have podcasts, is to go after our advertisers. Now, they're going after Elon Musk's advertisers, and they've been quite successful. Does Elon Musk have a case? Do you see this as a free speech issue? Because usually the historic definition has been one in regards to the government cracking down on free speech? Should the ADL be able to run roughshod over the culture of free speech that we try and enjoy on the internet?
It's a very good question. It's not so clear that he does have a case. When I was representing Laura Loomer, a Florida judge said, no, you don't have a case. CARE is entitled to tell Twitter its opinion about Laura Loomer and to encourage Twitter to cancel her account, to ban her from Twitter. Our argument was there is a line that you cross when you go beyond merely expressing an opinion, where you're actually pressuring or coordinating with that organization in a way that violates what are considered to be the rules of the road for commerce and good faith commercial practice. It is, however, it is a hard line and a hard line to draw, and it's not entirely clear that Elon Musk can draw it here. I will say, however, that the distinction between private organizations such as ADL and the government and the social media platforms themselves is now known to be a lot more questionable. We see that to a large extent, the state, and when I say the state, I mean both the federal government and state and some local governments, have outsourced censorship in a way that is impermissible. And that's an issue that we've now put before the United States Supreme Court in O'Handley versus California. That's a super important case, and it's a super important issue. I don't know the extent to which ADL is coordinating with government or with quasi-government actors such as the Democratic Party, which runs the government. But if you could find the right dots to connect in a complaint, it might go somewhere.
Man, these are some interesting questions here. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Glad to have you here. Make sure you click like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content that you're hearing right now. I'm speaking to Ron Coleman about Elon Musk threatening to sue the ADL for, ironically, defamation. We'd be glad to have you come back and join us every morning, Mondays through Fridays at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Now, here's really where it gets down to brass tacks, is this question of, like, if the government is involved and has been historically telling X or Twitter what to do, then that creates a whole sticky issue. And obviously, I think that's a violation of free speech. But let's consider that perhaps the FBI no longer tells X or Twitter what to do, and that it is now a privately owned company. Elon Musk can do with it as he pleases. He now has the opportunity, the option to say, well, here is an account, ADL, which is working against my business interests. This is my own private platform. And I got no end of hell for defending social media to kick off conservatives and libertarians that I agreed with back in the day when leftists were running it, because I said it's a private platform. They could do what they want. Of course, I didn't know at the time about the government's involvement and role. But on principle, Ron, if it's a private platform and a private company, they can kick it off and do what he wants. So does Elon Musk, or should Elon Musk, kick off the ADL because it's against his business interests, or should he keep them on because he's devoted it to being a free speech platform, knowing that he already doesn't allow people like Nick Fuentes and sometimes Kanye and Alex Jones and others on? What do you do if you're Elon?
If you're Elon, what I think you do is you keep the ADL on for two reasons. One is that it's good tactically to do that. ADL, and the second reason is that ADL is not influential at all on Twitter. In fact, it tends to get ratioed. So having them on simply provides a target and they get that feedback. They're aware, obviously, of what's going on in their social, and that just might affect their policy.
It's interesting. Ron, tell us a little bit about your own podcast. Where can we tune in?
Go to ColemanNation.com. You have to put a hyphen because someone else got that domain name. And the idea is not the nation, it's culmination, like I'm finishing, completion, culmination, or just look up Ron Coleman on the internet. Ron Coleman lawyer, though. You want to put the word lawyer in, or you're going to get someone who doesn't look at all like me and is in a very different line of work. Ron Coleman lawyer. Find me on Twitter. That's the best place to find out what's going on with the podcast, Culmination. We talk about kind of the issues that we've been talking about today with you, a little bit longer form, and usually not live, but would love to have more people check it.
Ron, this was a great conversation, very enlightening, very interesting. We always love your points of view. Very underrated tweets, as they say. And you can follow him over on formerly Twitter, now X, at Ron Coleman. And Ron, we appreciate you very much. Thanks for standing up for free speech and liberty. We appreciate you very much.
A real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Ron Coleman. What do you think of Ron? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, you can text the Wake Up America show at any time. Let us know what you feel about the issues, or if you think that perhaps there is a story that we might be missing. You can text us again at 573-319-1586. And when you do, I might read your tweet or your post or your text on air. And if you prefer to remain anonymous, just say so, and I'd be glad to read your text message without sharing your information publicly, because everybody has a right to privacy to a certain extent. Right. I think so. Okay, what else do we have on the show for her today, Johnny? It's nice to see my lovely wife, Stephanie Peterson, joining us over there on Rumble. Good morning. Saw we clocked up over 100 viewers this morning there on Rumble, watching us live simultaneously. Thank you very much. On the 1-year anniversary of the Wake Up America show, it's been nice to see all of the support and the outpouring of support from people who have been joining us and tuning into the Wake Up America show live. It's been because of the support of people like yourself who have stepped up when YouTube demonetized us last week, that we now bring all of our friends and support over to rumble.com, which has featured us on their website in the last week and been so helpful in helping us to get our show on its feet when we took that big blow. But of course, people who are subscribers to the Wake Up America show are important. But we also have got a couple of new moderators this morning. We want to say thank you to Camellia Peterson and Quest Fanning for stepping up this morning. Oh, and how could I forget? How did I not? Oh, yeah, Steffi P for Liberty. So we now have Quest Fanning, Rare Camellia, and Steffi P for Liberty are now moderators over at the chat. And of course, we haven't seen Cheeky Mare in a little while. So Cheeky, if you're there, announce yourself to us, because we want to make you a moderator as well. We miss some of our friends who were over there on YouTube. And if you're one of the maybe like 5 or 10 people who are watching us on YouTube this morning, you're wondering where all the audience is. We're all over on Rumble, so you can find us on Rumble at rumble.com/AP for Liberty. The outpouring of support from all of the fans and monthly sponsors has been incredible, and we're super grateful for you. But of course, we couldn't do it, without our big sponsor at Lear Capital, which is our gold and silver dealer for the show. They are the official sponsor of the Wake Up America show, and they are the precious metals leader here in the United States. We've got a limited time deal going on right now. For those of you who are interested in investing in gold and silver, I've got a couple of things. The big sale going on right now is that for those of you who have the guts to get on the phone and actually make a phone call to somebody, which I know many of you are phone averse these days, you can get a $500 credit on your first purchase of gold at Lear Capital. That's 1-800-885-2175. Let's do our little gold member dance. 1-800-885-2175. If you call them today, tell them that you saw the Austin Peterson's Wake Up America show and that you are ready to buy some gold, but you want your $200 account credit, which you can get right over there. There it is, right there. Call that number. There we go. 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175. Everybody do the gold dance with me, all right? The gold member dance. Here we go. If you're like me and you're phone averse these days, I get it. I understand. You can't get the $500 account credit for visiting the website. You got to call them for that one. But you can get more information about how to invest in gold and silver from Lear Capital. Just visit the website, LEARAUSTIN. For those of you who are phone averse, LEARAUSTIN.com. LearAustin.com is a great place for those of you who are phone averse, just to get more information. They'll send you a free informational packet. But if you want that $500 account credit, what do you got to do? You got to call that number, 1-800-885-2175. What's that number again? 1-800-885-2175. Oh, yeah. Thanks very much to Lear Capital for sponsoring the Wake Up America show. Without you, we couldn't eat. Guts to have the eats. All right. Oh, okay, so I had this... We have this clip that I wanted to share with you. of a migrant, and I believe this is in the UK. I was having some trouble finding the background on this story, but this is a guy who decided that he was going to F around. Unfortunately, he never found out. And another reason why people in the United States like myself will never surrender our firearms. Take a look at this video here. You can see this man climbing, okay, looks like it's in Sweden, climbing a ladder into a Swedish home armed with a knife. These are the kinds of videos that the left doesn't want you to see, but thank God for technology today to help us to see these kinds of things so that people remember never to surrender their firearms. What I didn't understand about this video is why the guy didn't just grab the ladder and throw him off. I mean, we'll talk about normalcy bias here in just a moment, but take a look at this video. This is insane.
En stege. En stege. Okej.
Vad gör du, Mohammed?
Ska vi bara gå in?
Vad gör du?
Ingenting.
Tror du kommer upp här? Tror du kommer upp här?
Vad ska du slå med mig?
Nej, wallah.
Nej, vad ska du göra då?
Jag vill prata med dig, Maria.
Vad vill du? Du
He's got
har
his
stått
hand
och
down.
pratat med mig länge nog. Jag säger jag tycker synd om dig. Gå härifrån.
Mohammed, du kommer inte upp här. Du kommer inte in i mitt hem. Du kommer inte in i mitt hem, Mohammed. Du kommer inte in i mitt hem. Därför han högg mig med en kniv. Han högg mig med en kniv. Han högg mig med en kniv, en stor köttkniv. Såg ni det?
He's got the knife.
Du,
very
han
well placed
krossar
brick
glaset
there.
med en sten. Mohammed.
Muhammad's not going to help you now, brother.
Släpp in mig på där så han kommer in. Han kommer in, Maria. Mohammed, hugg du.
Breaks into the house,
Mohammed.
brings the knife.
Mohammed, du högg mig redan. Mohammed.
Right there. So, I mean, you know, this is Sweden, right? It's not the United States, but still, why would you let somebody climb
Du
up a
kommer
ladder?
inte upp här. Du kommer inte in i
This
mitt
is
hem.
your opportunity.
Du kommer inte.
Why didn't you take this opportunity to just give him a little shove? Right? I think it's because people have a normalcy bias, right? They just when unbelievable things or frightening things are happening, people can't believe that it's actually happening, and they freeze up and they deny that this is happening. It is your job as an American, as a citizen of the United States, to understand and to process what is happening to you in real time, and for you to be able to react appropriately. This is why my wife Stephanie and I, we love to train in martial arts, and we love to talk about self-defense scenarios, and we love to stand together and to work out and train together so that we can get over our normalcy bias, right? So the only time, you know, in my adult life that I've ever had to defend myself from a violent attack was on the streets of Kansas City in the Westport area. Some crackhead got thrown out of a bar, and me and a couple of my friends were sitting down outside at a nearby restaurant and saw him and kind of commented on the fact that, like, well, we were just seeing what was going on because it was an altercation going on, so we're commenting on it. And he apparently had heard us talking about what was going on over there and decided to come and pick a fight with us. Well, thankfully, at that point, that would have been 10 years of martial arts training. Now I'm like into my 15th year of martial arts. After the 10 years of martial arts training, I had gotten over my concept of normalcy bias, right? The number one thing that you learn in things like this is just one, situational awareness, so that you don't get yourself into situations like these, right? Have a plan to prepare for situations like what this man is going through here. I'll just play it here on loop so you can see this with the sound off. But have a plan to deal with something like this. If somebody were to try and do this at my house, for example, both Stephanie and myself are ready for this kind of a scenario. If somebody tries to climb in a ladder through our window where we sleep at night, it will be the last thing that they ever do in their lives, right? Do you have a plan for these kinds of things? Are you ready to defend yourself? Or will you hide in a corner and shrink in fear and try, or will you even run away? Because look at this. Like, he's completely denying what's happening in front of him and refusing to face the reality of the crime that is currently being committed against him. Here we have it. I mean, he probably can't reach down and actually touch the ladder and throw it back. But he's got the brick right there behind him. You know, throw a brick to the guy's face right there. I mean, you've got a million different things that you can do to stop this guy. Right here, it's a perfect opportunity. Doesn't have the knife out, right? Just give him a push. but instead allows him up there. Listen, men, if you've got a woman in the house and you're trying to protect her from things like this, you cannot have enormously bias. And ladies, I think these days anymore, if you don't have a man in the house or somebody who's there to protect you specifically, you need to train and practice in self-defense. I've got an awesome show coming for you. Lots more left to go. Judge Napolitano going to talk to us about defamation, the history of defamation, case laws and studies in the background of Elon Musk versus the ADL. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It was 1946. A battle was fought, not overseas, but right here on American soil. The Battle of Athens, an intense struggle against election fraud and for the rights promised by our founding fathers. Driven by the Second Amendment, ordinary citizens stood tall and fought back. Help us expose this momentous battle of integrity and bravery. Your support can make a difference. Visit givesendgo.com/bleedamerican and pledge your support, because we believe in the power of truth, the strength of unity, and the spirit of we the people. Let us not forget, we bleed American.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts
than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Thanks so much for tuning into the program today. If you're a regular viewer of the show, you know what to do. Make sure that you click that like button. Help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. And if you like the content that you're watching today and it's your first time, make sure that you subscribe as well because, well, I think you'll really enjoy our regular viewers. Definitely love the show, and they know that every Wednesday they have a very special guest. He's an old friend of mine, and he comes on the show every Wednesday at 8 a.m. I can't say enough nice things about this man, who has not only been someone who has been an intellectual guide in my life, but he is someone who I have a deep and profound love for personally as well. He once called me the right side of his brain as one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. We spent 2 years together where I was his associate producer of the Fox Business show Freedom Watch, and we always remember fondly some of the greatest days of our lives and our careers spent together. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, which has been a massive runaway hit online, and you should absolutely subscribe to it. And of course, his weekly columns for those of us who love liberty at judgenap.com are a must read. And he's joining us live right now. Good morning, Judge. Glad to have you here, sir.
Well, good morning, Austin. Thank you for that beautiful conversation. Yeah, I was thinking the other day about times in my life if I could go back to for just a day. And one of them, of course, was Freedom Watch. I don't know which day I would choose, but I would love to relive one of those days again with the same cast of characters with whom we were privileged to work.
Oh, Judge,
but thank you for...
There's still memories and records on the internet of some of the times where our headlines were so explosive and our guests were so exclusive that the news media exploded with coverage about what we were doing there. Probably my favorite memories would have been our uncovering the revelations in Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer's book, Operation Dark Heart, and the subterfuge that went on when the Department of Defense ordered copies of his book destroyed. And I will never forget, Judge, when we had a copy of the unredacted copy of the book, and then we lost it, and you set me on a mission to find that book, and that was probably one of my favorite memories.
How about the time you went down to Occupy Wall Street to find out that some of those crazies were actually libertarians who hated the Fed?
One of these days I should write a biography, Judge, and it'll be a huge section devoted to our hijinks and our fight for liberty. But our fight for liberty continues today with your regular appearances here on the show to talk about the most important issues of our lives, including those surrounding Elon Musk, the owner of now X.com, formerly Twitter, and his threatening to sue the Anti-Defamation League for, ironically enough, defamation. What's your take, big picture, on this case, Judge?
Well, big picture on this case is that the Anti-Defamation League expressed an opinion of a public figure. That is the most difficult defamation case in which to prevail, because he has the ADL has two substantial defenses under our system. The first is that because Elon Musk is a public figure, he would have to demonstrate to a judge before this case even gets to a jury that the statement was false and known to have been false at the time it was uttered, or that the statement was uttered with reckless disregard for whether it was true or false. Even if he overcame that hurdle, he'd have to overcome the hurdle that the statement is opinion. And opinion on a matter of public interest is protected no matter how weird or absurd or outside the boundaries of a polite society it may be. So I would encourage him, if he's aggrieved by what they said, say what he wants to say about them. His megaphone is bigger than theirs. but don't use the power of the government, because the courts are the government, to redress this grievance. I know you want to talk about defamation, so I'll wait until you ask more precise questions. But frankly, with my respect for Elon Musk, this is a loser of a case.
Now, the social media question of free speech on social media has gotten a little more murky in recent years, Judge, when we have seen the involvement that government has had in regards to social media institutions. Now, we don't know if the FBI currently is trying to strong arm Elon Musk in any way. We can bet that when it comes to Facebook or Meta or any of these other social media institutions, that they're probably working arm in arm with the FBI and other intelligence agencies, not only to provide them with information, but also probably to enforce the ideology of the deep state, Judge. Does that change any of this with the fact that the government has in recent history colluded with the government in order to crack down on free speech?
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't change defamation law. It just exposes the government as totally lacking in fidelity to the Constitution, which it has sworn to uphold, particularly the First Amendment. You know, there's a famous rarely is a line from oral argument in a Supreme Court opinion, in a Supreme Court case, reproduced months later in the opinion. But in one very famous case, it was the Pentagon Papers case. That's when Daniel Ellsberg stole documents from the Defense Department and gave them to the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the Nixon administration got an injunction against their publication, and the Supreme Court reversed the injunction and said if a matter is of material interest to the public, it doesn't matter how the publisher got it. During the oral argument, Justice William O. Douglas said to the lawyer for the government, well, now let's see here. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Let me ask you, Mr. Solicitor General, does no law really mean no law? Now, that phrase that I just articulated is reproduced in the written opinion. I know of no other case in which this happened. And of course, the government can't answer that directly, because if the answer is it means what it says, then the government's case collapses. If the answer is it doesn't mean what it says, well, then what the hell does it mean? But of course, we know there are laws that punish speech. Conspiracy, which I have condemned, is thought and speech. Treason is often just speech. Defamation is just speech. Murray Rothbard, who's the modern fountainhead of libertarian theory in the West, argued that all defamation laws are immoral because they violate the freedom of speech. I don't know if I answered your question or if I'm scattershot here, but it's a fascinating area that you and I have talked about many, many times.
Sure. Understood. I assume that you agree with Murray Rothbard, so there should be no law in regards to defamation. But have there been, I mean, there must be laws on defamation, and there must have been cases in the past that have been successful. On what grounds or what basis have lawsuits regarding defamation actually been successful?
Well, before Times against Sullivan, the only defense was truth. So, in other words, if someone said something about you that you felt harmed your reputation, you would have to affirmatively prove that the statement was false. That was the only defense. There was no public figure defense. There was no fair comment defense. There was no opinion defense. Now, if you want to go way back, when the First Amendment was ratified, the courts understood it as restraining only the federal government and only federal courts. So there was no defamation in any federal court. There was only defamation in state courts, because until the 14th Amendment was ratified, the public policy of the country was that the first 8 amendments, which articulate individual liberties, did not apply to the states. So defamation law in America has a very long slow march to the point where it is today. The government could sue you for defaming the government. Henry VIII had people beheaded for making comments about his love life. Now, that's an extreme example, and that was called high treason, treason against the person of the monarchy. We're talking about a civil litigation in which a private person claims loss of reputation or income or work or peace of mind because of what another private person said about them. It actually is a lot more favorable to the freedom of speech today. That is, it is more difficult for plaintiffs today than it was at any other time in our history because of a more enlightened view of the freedom of speech.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're grateful to have you here. Don't forget to click like on the stream that you're watching us on this morning and subscribe to the channel to get updates when we go live. I'm speaking to the esteemed Judge Andrew Napolitano, who's joining us now. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, as well as a weekly column that appears at judgenap.com. It's time now for us to delve into big brain time, Judge. And I get so many comments from all of our libertarian friends who say this is their favorite part of the show. So here we go. We're going to get into the weeds. There's a concept in economics, Judge, that is tangentially related to this question of defamation. I can't remember what the word for it is, but it's something akin to if you have a neighbor, for example, who doesn't mow their lawn and their property falls into disrepair, it brings down the property values of everyone in their neighborhood, for example. So this is something that it's a legitimate harm, but it may not be something that libertarians will see as harm. Your neighbors will complain, you don't want to cut your lawn, you don't want to repair your house, but everybody in the neighborhood is being harmed by it. It's not something that you can actually sort of tangentially say, well, this is, direct physical harm that someone, it's not a violation of the non-aggression principle, if you will. But then there's this question of defamation where, let's say I'm not a public figure, but I'm a business owner in a town, and you have a newspaper that is printing obvious lies about my business and destroying my business because they're defaming me and saying things that are completely untrue. I mean, without any kind of a defamation law, what recourse does a business owner have other than to try and tell people the truth? But you and I know well, Judge, that the lies go around the world twice before truth has time to put on its shoes. What can one do? How can one receive recompensation or defend oneself against the kinds of harms that are somewhat immaterial but material in a financial sense? What would a business owner in that scenario do if they're not Elon Musk?
Okay, so the concept you're talking about is called desuetude. Strange word meaning something next door to you is happening that hurts you, but it's not an intentional aggressive act. I disagree with Murray Rothbard on the absolute prohibition on defamation because words can violate the non-aggression principle. A newspaper that wants to drive somebody out of business by using words is engaged in a form of aggression, particularly if the words are untruthful. So some defamation cases are moral, consistent with the non-aggression principle, and constitutional. I don't know that Elon Musk's is. Elon Musk is notorious for wanting, like Donald Trump, wanting to use litigation as sort of a brushback pitch, if you will, against his temporary or contemporary adversaries. So I almost don't blame him for threatening it. I don't know if he's actually filed it. But there are cases where defamation does violate the non-aggression principle. The sainted Murray Rothbard to the contrary notwithstanding.
Well, Judge, I really appreciate your intellectual honesty on things like these because over the years, throughout my intellectual journey, as I read the works of the great Murray Rothbard and Ayn Rand and yourself and Ron Paul and Isabel Patterson and Rose Wilder Lane, I find myself confronted with many of these idiosyncrasies. And, Ayn Rand said that reason cannot contradict reason, but libertarians can contradict one another. So, in order to form a worldview that is coherent, when I find for example, you disagreeing with Murray Rothbard, I have to make the best decision that I can with the information that I can in order to decide what is really the most moral and logical and ethical worldview. And I think you've articulated that, Judge, because despite our flirtations with anarcho-capitalism, you have a profound reverence for the Constitution, right? Which is at odds with the anarcho-capitalist ideal, which says that the Constitution has no authority. And yet you still flirt with Lysander Spooner. So you must, Judge, as well as I do, wrestle with these concepts and seeing these incoherences. Feel, I guess, perhaps as flummoxed as I am sometimes.
Well, listen, I think I understand where you're coming from and where you're going. Let me try and find a common point here. So Murray Rothbard was raised as a Jew and was a cultural Jew and became an atheist. I don't know what was in his heart at the time he died, but he admired and was a defender of all people, St. Thomas Aquinas. Now, St. Thomas Aquinas is the modern day explainer of the natural law and natural rights, which Murray Rothbard embraced 100% and with perfect fidelity to Aquinas. One of the things that Aquinas said, and to read the Summa Theologica, it's 2,000 pages, but one of the things that Aquinas said is that the natural law, looking for natural rights, is like peeling an onion. In every age, you discover another right because it was not attacked in a previous age, and so it didn't necessarily need to be articulated. So there was no defamation law when St. Thomas first articulated natural rights. But as time progresses, as newspapers got stronger, as they acquired the ability to destroy someone's business, there needs to be a recourse which a previous generation, which didn't have newspapers of that potency, didn't need to think of. So there are times, truth doesn't change, but facts cause us to look at things differently. And it is a fact today that a newspaper or a website could destroy somebody just out of malice, just by using words. That doesn't mean that the First Amendment insulates them from recourse.
If you were to take that logic, Judge, and to apply it, for example, to weaponry, the founding fathers probably couldn't have conceived of a nuclear weapon. And so because times have changed in such a way, we now have had to adapt our laws to say that the Second Amendment doesn't necessarily cover nuclear weapons, which leads us a bit down a rabbit hole to a certain extent. So how far can we take that? I mean, it is kind of a joke in libertarian circles that we should legalize recreational nukes.
I'm laughing because of these arguments you used to have with Gary Schreier, who was our executive producer at the time. Judge, Austin's nuts. What did he say now? He thinks he can keep a tank in the garage of his house or on your farm. A tank? Tell him he's crazy. I said, no, Gary, he's not crazy. Well, then you're crazy. We're not discussing this on air today. How many times did we go through this? Oh, boy. So look, one theory is that the First Amendment only protects arms. It doesn't protect armaments like cannon and tank. The other theory is that because the government consists by the consent of the governed, we can't consent to the government to do something that we ourselves can't do. So whatever the government can do that we gave them the consent to do, we obviously can do. So it depends upon whether you are true north or whether you are, I'll use a Scalia phrase, soft-hearted.
Judge, so additional rights with the passage of time, but also additional restrictions with the passage of time. Then consider the airplane, for example, another modern marvel that the founding fathers didn't have to contend with. Before the invention of the airplane. When you bought property, you owned all of the property, including up to into the sky and into space. But with the creation of the airplane, Judge, all of a sudden there is a new definition of the concept of private property in our real estate. We now have to accept that airplanes can fly over our property without our consent. Isn't that correct?
Well, because like a lot of other things that is stolen, the government has stolen that property right. There was a time when you could buy, sell, lease, or hypothecate that property right. You still can in New York City up to a certain height, because developers will pay a fortune for a view. So I have an empty lot, and next to me, a guy is building a high rise. He wants to lease my property rights from floor 6 up to the heavens, meaning I agree not to build above floor 6 so that he can sell expensive views out of his building. I can do that up to a certain height, but above that height, the government has stolen the property, just like the government has stolen property from everybody. Government exists only by stealing property.
Judge, I love it. I have one last question here before I let you go. And I know that you're not psychic, Judge, but you do have an incredible vision. Can you tell me, is the CIA in my underwear?
It depends when you ask me. If you ask me that a year from now, and if you buy your underwear in the next year, the chances are pretty good that the answer is yes. I know this sounds absurd, and of course, I know why you're asking it. My column that comes out tonight has the provocative, some would say gut-wrenching title of "Is the CIA in Your Underwear?" Because last week, with not a peep from Congress, although they were on vacation, summer vacation, and not a peep from the White House, which is asleep even when old Joe is there, the director of national intelligence announced that she just spent $22 million developing cotton textiles that will allow the CIA to monitor the audio, video, and geospatial location of the wearer. And this cotton will go into shirts, pants, socks, and yes, underwear. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous, but Google DNI, Director of National Intelligence, and you'll see the presentation that she made, including the displays of some of this potential clothing. How was this done? By stealing your tax dollars. Who did this? A lot of unknown, unnamed labs and engineering companies, except 3 of them are very well known. The University of Virginia, owned by the state of Virginia and founded by Thomas Jefferson. Penn State University, owned by the state of Pennsylvania, and DuPont, which of course already owns the state of Delaware. Snarky, my last comment. But the point is tax dollars spent all over the place. Why? Because the government has an insatiable appetite to surveil us. Its respect for our natural right to be left alone is non-existent. Its respect for the Constitution is non-existent. It exists by evading and avoiding the document it has sworn an oath to preserve, protect, and defend. This is another extreme, absurd example of it.
Unbelievable. Judge, tell us who you've got coming up next on your excellent Judging Freedom podcast.
I have this young former Marine major and former State Department official in the Obama years, Matthew Ho, who's just a brilliant and gifted anti-war activist and analyst of the dangers of what the State Department is doing. As you and I are speaking at this very moment, Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, is in Kyiv, publicly handing a facsimile of a check for $1 billion to Vladimir Zelensky. How does this go over in Moscow? That's what we'll be talking about. We already had a session this morning, which is now posted with the great, gifted, brilliant Alistair Crook, in which we discussed the new public and not so bizarre relationship between Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. You're spending $1 billion to attack me from the east. I'm going to give ICBMs in the west. I'm going to give you ICBMs to threaten you from the east. It's all diplomatic maneuvering, but it's potentially very dangerous.
Very dangerous. You can check out Judge Knapp at any of your favorite social networks, and you can download the Judging Freedom podcast, of course, on any of your podcast networks as well, and read his weekly column at judgeknapp.com. It is absolutely essential reading for any liberty lover around the world. Judge Andrew Napolitano, another great segment. We laugh, we cry. We have a great segment. We look forward to having you back next week. Thank you very much, sir.
You got it. You got it. Thank you, Austin. All the best to you.
Thank you very much. What do you think of Judge Andrew Napolitano? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Liberty Gun Safe Company caves to demands from law enforcement to open up a gun owner's safe. Let's talk about that with the policy director of the National Association for Gun Rights when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds: old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have "Glad You Came Out" and "I'm so happy that you're queer" in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. What did you guys think of Judge Knapp? Wasn't he awesome? So good. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central Time, we talk about the news of the day, and then we usually delve into the weeds of libertarian philosophy and ethos and conversations that you're just not going to get on any other talk show. And it's a great way to start your day, although usually you do need a strong cup of coffee for the big brain conversations with Judge Napolitano. So I don't start the show with the judge because, you know, it's 7 a.m. We're kind of rolling out of bed going, ugh, right? So by 8 a.m., you've already had a cup of, oh, you know, delicious Founding Flavors coffee. I hope you enjoyed that commercial. Don't forget to get your delicious Founding Flavors coffee over at ap4libertyshop.com. My new favorite flavor, Thomas's Painkiller Coffee. I think you all will enjoy that. It's my favorite Colombian single origin. Absolutely delicious. Don't want to miss it. If you're a big caffeine lover as well, Jeffersonian Java, the light roast, that's the way to go. All right, well, let's talk about liberty. I think that word doesn't mean what Liberty Safe Company thinks it means. Apparently, Liberty Safe Company, which manufactures gun safes for, you know, gun owners like ourselves, cracked open one of their safes that their customers had owned for law enforcement. This is the statement that the company put out. They said on August 30th, 2023, Liberty Safe was contacted by the FBI requesting the access code to the safe of an individual for whom they had a warrant to search their property. Our company protocol is to provide access codes to law enforcement if a warrant grants them access to the property. After receiving the request, we received proof of the valid warrant, and only then did we provide them with an access code. Liberty Safe had no knowledge of any of the details surrounding the investigation at the time. There's another big red flag for you. They say that Liberty Safe is devoted to protecting the personal property and Second Amendment rights of our customers and has repeatedly denied requests for access codes without a warrant in the past. They're devoted to protecting the personal property and Second Amendment rights of their customers. War is peace, freedom is slavery, east is west, north is south. Let's talk to somebody who's an expert on not just the Fourth Amendment when it comes to these things, but the Second Amendment as well. He's the political director for the National Association for Gun Rights, and he's got a hell of a first name. He's Austin Hine. Good morning, Austin. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, the Liberty Safe issue. It's why people like us have trust issues with anything, really. I'm not a gun guy by nature. I'm a liberty guy by nature, which then entails guns, right? And so you start getting involved in that stuff, and yeah, you're just trying to like lock up your firearms, make sure that things are safe. And of course, the company's got keys to it, and it hands it right over to the government for anything. It's nuts.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, even if the company is told that they have a warrant for their property, is there a legal obligation that the company has to open up somebody else's property in that way?
No. And we actually saw something similar with this, not a Second Amendment issue, but a couple years ago with Apple, when they were being trying to coerced into unlocking a suspect's phone, which they refused to do for at least for a long time. I think they eventually gave in, but not without a fight.
Yeah, no kidding. It's definitely concerning, and you know what the lesson is from this is get a dummy safe, right? Like those fancy expensive electronic safes. To me, they don't look so good. I think I'm gonna prefer to just get a dummy safe for mine because I don't want the government or anybody to have this opportunity. It's not just the government. I mean, you don't want anybody who could get access to your safe and crack it just as a hacker, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, I mean, any sort of additional keys you have, that's just more opportunities for them to get to it.
For sure. Austin, I see that the National Association for Gun Rights has really been out there fighting hard for our freedoms. I saw last week that the National Association for Gun Rights apparently secured a temporary restraining order in the lawsuit against the FRT ban. What's FRT? What's this about?
Yeah, it's force reset triggers. This is a trigger which is designed to allow someone to use their to fire around with each pull, but also with the trigger recoiling. These have been legal by the ATF for years, and now all of a sudden they changed their mind. They raided the company owner's house, his business, told him he couldn't sell it anymore, tried to have him arrested. And so we stepped in and we sued against the ATF on this. And lo and behold, the courts are agreeing with us, or at least early on. And they issued a preliminary injunction, or a temporary restraining order, telling the ATF that they can't enforce this until this is resolved. We're hoping for a preliminary injunction in the next month or so, as we're still being litigated. But it's a first really big step that we have towards winning this case overall.
Well, that's good news, and we appreciate that the National Association for Gun Rights is out there fighting for our liberty when it comes to the Second Amendment. Talk to us a little bit about this. Obama-appointed judge ruled in favor of RMGO. What's that?
Mm-hmm. So RMGO is our sister organization that runs out of Colorado, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. And they had sued on the 18 to 20-year-old ban that Colorado had just passed. They just banned all 18 to 20-year-olds from buying semi-automatic rifles. And so Rocky Mountain Gun Owners sued on that and won. They basically put that lawsuit, or that law, in complete halt. So a huge win there. And yeah, it's an Obama-appointed judge who their hands are tied because of how good the Bruin ruling was from last year. The Bruin versus New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which ruled that the Second Amendment has to cover anything that is within the text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment. So any gun law that doesn't follow into those categories dating back to 1791, when the Second Amendment was ratified, then it doesn't hold water as far as the constitutional test.
Well, this is going to be an interesting question because with the Supreme Court's the way that Clarence Thomas sort of explained it, as you just stated there, and forgive me for reiterating, my understanding is that if there's any kind of a gun law that's written in the United States, even on the state level, it has to be written in such a way as to respect the Second Amendment at the time that it was written. Correct?
That's right. Exactly.
So then that gives a fairly wide latitude for the courts to overturn state gun laws, correct?
Pretty much everything. Yeah.
Are there any gun laws that or are there any gun cases that the Supreme Court is going to be hearing anytime in the next year?
Yeah. One of them is U.S. v. Rahimi, which is kind of a controversial one because the plaintiff, basically, this is about a felon. Well, I don't say a felon's right to own a gun, but it has to do with that type of issue. Rahimi was a prohibited person on a whole lot of other cases, but they ended up arresting him based off of basically, from what I understand, like a domestic violence restraining order, which isn't necessarily a prohibiting factor as far as Bruin is concerned. And so that's being litigated in the Supreme Court right now, and that's going to be the first real test of Bruin. How far does Bruin go? Does it allow for people who should be able to own firearms to be able to own firearms? Not necessarily that Rahimi would, but for this specific case, yeah.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're grateful to have you here. Make sure you click like and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on this morning. Good morning, all of our friends over at rumble.com. Today, we've been frequently posting up towards 100 live viewers simultaneously, which we're very excited about, especially because it's the 1-year anniversary of the Wake Up America show. It's 1-year anniversary week. We started 1 year ago on the day after Labor Day, and we're grateful for all of the friends and supporters who have helped make this show a success to where we're at today. Thank you for all of your support and for tuning in so early in the morning. We appreciate especially our guests like Austin Hine from the National Association for Gun Rights, because they got to get up early and do these live hits, and I know they ain't easy. Austin, tell us a little bit about what the National Association for Gun Rights is working on now.
Yeah, so we often call ourselves, or we do what you think the NRA does, is it, to put it lightly. Everyone thinks the NRA is like this big pro-gun organization who knocks politicians around, but they don't. In reality, that they're always working behind the scenes on a lot of the gun control stuff that we do see. And so National Association for Gun Rights is the no compromise group. We're out pushing constitutional carry. We are the driving force behind that, and it's up to 27 states now. And we're looking to add 2 more this year, especially looking at Louisiana and South Carolina. Those are our top targets going into the election season, and as well as the legislative season in January. Right now, we're actually looking at a big fight going on in Pennsylvania, which is trying to pass red flag laws. And so we're going to be going in there with Pennsylvania gun rights and trying to take down some Democrat politicians.
That's good stuff. We definitely are fans of the National Association for Gun Rights. Austin Hine is their political director. Austin, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners? Make sure that they know before we let you go today.
Yeah, you should get in the fight, come take action, go to gunrights.org, sign our petitions, get on our list, and help us take on Republican and Democrat politicians alike. Gun control knows no party lines, and you guys know that. And so we could use your help into taking out those establishments and protecting the Second Amendment.
And where can people follow you online, Austin?
They can follow us at gunrights.org. You can follow me at Hein for Liberty. That's HEIN for Liberty. Or you can search National Association for Gun Rights on Twitter or X or Facebook. We're on all the platforms.
Sounds good. Austin Hine, he's the political director for the National Association for Gun Rights out there. He's a liberty guy, not just a gun guy. We like that, Austin. You definitely coined that phrase. You should put that in your bio. Thanks very much for your time today, Austin. Thanks for getting up early and have a great day.
Thanks, Austin.
There you go. What do you think of Austin Hines? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. It's nice to keep checking in with what's going on out there for people who are fighting for our liberty. Speaking of gun rights, I've posted this video yesterday on Instagram. Just cracked me up. This is a Democrat explaining why we need to ban assault rifles. His best definition of an assault rifle versus a hunting rifle. Take a look and a listen at this and laugh, laugh, laugh. Here we go.
What the bill does is it distinguishes basically the difference between guns that go like this. These are rifles. You use them to shoot an animal, and you can shoot very precisely with a rifle an animal. These are the guns that hunters use. They go like this, and you look down the barrel, and you can shoot very precisely. You can have a scope. Those are the kinds of things that hunters like to use. Mass shooters don't like things that go like this, because what that means is someone can hit the rifle butt against their head. Deer don't do this. Elk don't do this.
Right. So deer hunters prefer guns that go like this, right? Because they don't, then the gun doesn't go back and shoot you in the head, because deer don't do this, elk don't do this, right? That's the logic and the reasoning. Let's continue.
So the mass shooters use guns that go like this.
The mass shooters use guns that go like this. Hold on. The mass shooters use guns that go like this. Hold on, let me get there. You see what I mean? Like this. Not like this, huh? Like this, huh? Yeah, you get what he's saying right here?
All right? Pistol grips, things like that. And guns that go like this are wildly inaccurate. That's why hunters don't like them. Mass shooters do like them.
Laughing.
Because their goal is generally not to accurately shoot one person, like an assassin, but to shoot many, many people fast. And so what the bill does is it distinguishes basically the difference between guns that go like this.
Guns
These
that
are
go like
rifles.
this.
You use them to shoot an animal, and you can shoot very precisely with a rifle an animal. These are the
Yeah, very precise on an animal like this. I mean, listen, we all know that he's special. He's a special child. He is. And of course, he's a Democrat, former delegate from the House of Delegates in Virginia. So basically a state level representative. And you know how Democrats are, a little bit tarded. Well, I shared this video. Stephanie and I did this video yesterday that we thought would be funny. And everybody is just hating on us. They hate it. They are cringe. I mean, the comments, you'd think that we'd have shot somebody's dog or taken somebody's freedom with how much they hated this video. I thought it was kind of cute. Take a look.
Are you coming up to bed?
No, honey, I think I'm gonna sleep here tonight.
What? Why? You know I get scared when I'm alone.
I just want to sleep here by myself tonight.
Okay. Good night.
Got one of those guns that goes like this. I mean, I thought it was fun. Cringe, 20 likes, cringe, real. You could tell she's never fired that in her life. Porn acting. Yeah, skits aren't the future of this page. Boo. Funny premise, but needed a few more takes. This video may be funny if you heard a negligent discharge as soon as she went up the stairs. Dorks. No, God! Mega cringe. No, God, as please, it's daylight out. No, first of all, of course it's daylight out. My wife and I go to bed at 8 p.m. at night because we have got to get up in the morning to do the Wake Up America show. What's the wrong with you?
How dare you?
How dare you, sir? Mega cringe. Okay, muy cringe. The amount of hate on this is wild. Apparently, AP's following are majority liberal leaning. It's disappointing to say the least. Hey, man, thank you, White Boy Fitness. The way she gripped it. This video is proof of an obnoxious attention-seeking behavior. Delete it. If you didn't think that I wanted attention, I mean, did you know that I do a 2-hour live stream show every Monday through Friday on the Wake Up America show? So, I mean, for the love of God, absolutely. Yeah, I'm attention seeking. What do you think? Truth Interdictions with the real comment says, that was sexy AF. How'd you not chase after her? Someone else says, you still have time to delete this. Dumber than dumb. She's not going to fire the weapon. I don't know. They're very upset about that one.
No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I just thought it was funny, and Stephanie and I were doing it for your entertainment. But you know what? I guess are you not entertained? I guess you're not entertained. So are skits the future of the page? I don't know. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're grateful and glad to have you here. Make sure that you click like on the Wake Up America show and subscribe to the channel so that you can come back and get updates whenever we go live. The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part not just by our sponsors like Lyric Capital and others, but from our own website shop where we have excellent merchandise, great Don't Tread on Me t-shirts, Killdozer merchandise, as well as our own coffee flavor, Founding Flavors Coffee. It's our own Founding Flavors coffee brand. If you haven't tried it yet, you're missing out big time, because if you're a coffee lover, then this is a brand for you. This is the brand for you. The Wake Up America show has brought to you some of the best coffee flavors in the world. And I'll tell you, I'm not just saying this or exaggerating because it's my own brand, but I am a coffee snob, okay? I don't really like Starbucks coffee because it tastes burnt. There are very few coffees that I actually enjoy and will drink regularly. Once I find a good flavor of coffee, I pretty much stick to it, and it's almost impossible to knock me off to try something else. Because when I tried Founding Flavors coffee, I'll be honest, or when I tried this coffee brand that I'm bringing to you, I just was like, if this doesn't taste good and I don't drink it, I'm not going to sell it. Thank God when I tried the multiple delicious flavors at Founding Flavor, at multiple delicious roasts, single origin, and blends from this coffee company, I was like, this is amazing. And I switched to it and I now drink it every day. The Wake Up America show has an exclusive for you, Founding Flavors coffee, only at ap4libertyshop.com. So if you're a coffee drinker like me, check it out because it's absolutely delicious. Now, here's the thing. I know that what'll happen is some of you might go to ap4libertyshop.com now and you'd be like, oh, it seems a little bit pricey. But here's the deal. The prices that we have are actually a little bit lower than other premium blends, because if you go online and check out your favorite premium blend, go and put the item in the cart and then see how much they cost compared to us, right? Once you've got the shipping calculated and everything, we're actually a little bit cheaper than other premium blends and single origins. So go to ap4libertyshop.com, and just an FYI, if you buy more than one of our brands of coffee, if you buy more than one, then you use the bundle page because you get discounts. The more bags you buy, the more the discount adds up. It goes 2%, 5%, 10%, 12%, all the way up to 4 bags or more. So check it out at ap4libertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, ap4libertyshop.com. I'm 42 years old. When we get back from the Wake Up America show, we're going to talk about why 42-year-old men are the sexiest men, and in their prime more than any other age. That's right, AP in his prime. When we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, you know, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America Show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mom, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Have you been enjoying the show so far today? Guys, you're just too kind. It's been a lot of fun producing the Wake Up America show in the last year, and here we are 1 year later from our launch, and I have to say the show has really changed a lot. We've added all kinds of new bells and whistles. We've had some sponsors come and go. We've had amazing guests, and a lot of people have been making actual real-life friends. Can we give it up for the Cantina Crew out there? Big time ups. To all of our friends who tune in the mornings, join us here every day, some of you, and we have been very glad to become friends with people out there that we didn't even know a year ago. Think about it. Here's Grover Bentley, Blutreich. These are all people who are new. Eric Wilson joining us, Corey and Callie, Clementine, who that's, I think, Diug, but I'm not sure which Diug that is. Could be a different Diug. I'm not quite sure. Maybe he's new, maybe he's old. Kermode Bear. We didn't know Kermode Bear a year ago. Now, Joni Rankin, she's also a new friend of ours as well. Grant Sunnyman, do we know who Grant is? Nelson65, definitely a newer friend. Quantum Kitty as well. It's amazing, all the amazing people that we have met in the last year because of the Wake Up America show. Thank you to all of you. I've had a lot of fun doing this show, and yes, there have been challenges. Yes, we've had explosions with pipes and destroyed equipment, and we've had a lot of bad things happen, and we've had a lot of good things happen. But through thick and thin, the Cantina Crew has stuck together, supported the Wake Up America show, and helped us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. I mean, really just think about it. All the people who tune into the show, some of you who comment, right? Some of you who participate, right? That's not the majority. The majority of people who watch the show never comment at all, right? And that's okay. We'd prefer to have them comment and interact, but they tune in and they listen, and then they hear these conversations between Judge Andrew Napolitano and myself. When you're supporting the Wake Up America show, you're supporting content like that so that people who may not be familiar with our ideas get to hear those intense conversations. So, it's a reminder of why I think public libraries shouldn't exist, right? Because if you think about it, yeah, those people might be free writers, but when you're supporting the Wake Up America show with your monthly contributions or with, now they're called Rumble Rants now, you're supporting other people being able to hear those ideas as well. And so we're grateful to you for helping us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. I was reading this article this morning that made me laugh because I'm a 42-year-old man, so I was looking for like pictures of 42-year-old men on the internet, but unfortunately they're all like models. Most 42-year-old men don't look like models. About the time that you turn 42 years old is when things start breaking down. So I read this article over at Dame magazine in praise of 42-year-old men, and I confirmed all of my biases that I'd always had wanted to hear. Because as you hit middle age, you start to feel a little bit older, and you start to realize that, that you're at your midlife scenario, right? And especially men, we don't live as long as women, unfortunately. And so, perhaps it's not even perhaps it's a little past midlife for all you know, depending on your health situation. But when I read this article, it made me smile and laugh because it said, in our first ever ranking of the ages, these are the ladies writing, we found that this year's most alluring age is not what you'd expect. It's not 27 or 39 or 86. It's 42 because Esquire says so. This is what the ladies wrote. They say, let's face it, there used to be something tragic about even the most beautiful 42-year-old man. With half his life still ahead of him, he was deemed to be at the end of something, namely, everything society valued in him, other than his success as a human person. If he remained sexual, he was neither predatory nor desperate, just doing what was totally accepted by society. If he remained handsome, what gave his masculinity force was the fact of its fading, and Viagra. If he remained alone, well, then God help him. He would be a bachelor forever, compelled to have sex with whomever he wanted, whenever he wanted. Oh, that sounds actually not too bad. Josh Charles was 42 at the time of this article. Jared Leto was 42. Justin Theroux. This article was written in 2014. There are many reasons for the apotheosis of 42-year-old men, and some of them have little to do with 42-year-old men themselves. In a society which the median age keeps advancing, we have no choice but to keep redefining youth, especially as we get older and fewer people our age want to sleep with us or look attractive to us. Life lasts longer, so does beauty, fertility, and sex. And yet 42-year-old men are not enjoying some kind of scientific triumph other than Viagra, but one of political and personal will, a mere continuation of the last 300 years. A few generations ago, a man turning 42 was expected to voluntarily accept the shackles of sociology and convention, getting married, having kids, or, not. But we have to work for our advantage. We do have to work out. We do have to, being 42 years old, some of us might have to take Viagra, gentlemen. No judgments here for that. But what has made us figures of fantasy, we 42-year-old men, is not that we've redefined the ideals of male strength, but rather our own vulnerabilities. If you go to a party, there is simply no one as unclothed as a 42-year-old man in a linen summer suit. For all his toughness and humor and smarts, you know exactly what he looks like without the advantage of knowing who he is. He looks like a hot guy. You'd totally bang. Have you ever wondered if there was more to life than being really, really ridiculously good looking? Derek Zoolander asked us a long time ago. The question back then was all that mattered. Women have long known the answer. We appreciate you all for tuning in to the Wake Up America show and grateful for all of our supporters today. Before you go, drop a tip in the tip jar, Rumble Rant to help us to spread the message of economic freedom or personal liberty, or head over to apforlibertyshop.com and get yourself some delicious Founding Flavors coffee. You're going to be back tomorrow morning, right? Thursday morning. It's going to be a great show. We got our regular, of course, Camellia Peterson will be joining us at 8 a.m. Central tomorrow. And we'll play our usual game of make Camellia Peterson turn beet red. Danielle Pensack, unfortunately, will be out this week. Yeah, I know, but she will be joining us the week after that. We've got lots more great shows to go. The Wake Up America show, of course. We'll be coming at you every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. You can set a clock by it. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the Wake Up America Show, wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.